Welcome to Speaking Sports. We're talking transfer portal for coaches and players, the playoff, and how quickly the NCAA can move when they want to. Dave and B-Ray, stay with us. All right, welcome into Speaking Sports from the remote AvCare RNS studios, powered by KRT. Cramp Relief Cream SNS20 is your code at krtrelief.com. B-Ray, we've been on hiatus for a couple of weeks, kind of letting the dust and smoke from the college football season in settle. What a crazy end of the season.
It was, and I don't think anybody's surprised that Alabama finished strong. It's kind of like Tiger Woods in a golf tournament. He stinks for 3 days and comes in on Sunday, and you go, I'm not surprised. He won.
Do you think?
And I think that's kind of with Bama. They look. That's the best they've looked all year.
You know, Bear Bryant used to have a tactic where his teams would never show everything they could show. They didn't blow teams out. So in other words, they did just enough to win, and they didn't only showed enough to win every week. So, do you think Nick Saban maybe did a little of that at the end of the year? You know, he took criticism for only winning by 6 at LSU, only winning by 7 to Arkansas. Do you think? And then I got to believe that as good as Georgia's defense was touted, they had to be seeing things that they hadn't seen before, and that was what was causing them the confusion. Do you think there's a little bit of gamesmanship going there? Or just is Alabama just that much better? And then if that's the case, why'd they lose to A&M?
I think the question is, I think the game is too evolved. I mean, LSU was down there 3 or 4 times, and if they would have executed, they could have won the game.
Yeah, they had the ball and a chance to win 3 times there at the end of the ball game.
Yeah. You know, they beat Arkansas by 7 in Arkansas. Now, they were up a couple touchdowns most of the game, and Arkansas kind of closed at the end.
Yeah.
But I think there's too much at stake to be playing a lot of games. I think you go into a game thinking this should be a game plan, but I don't think anything's off the table for a game against LSU, a game against Arkansas, a game against Auburn. And so, honestly, I just really think that's the best game Bryce has played all year. Because I have watched him, and I know he put up big numbers, but he never did look unbeatable to me. And that game against Georgia, he kind of looked unbeatable. And I think they got a little tight. I think Georgia was tight. They got behind early. A lot of the chatter out of Georgia was Bennett good enough to win a game like this? You know, he was good at managing the game, but was he good enough to go out and win a game? And Georgia was number 1 2 weeks ago. Now there's a quarterback controversy. So you tell me.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. A lot of people on national radio making comparisons to when Nick Saban benched Jalen Hurts for Tua Tagovailoa, and then switched back in a championship game when one of them got hurt. And the point, I guess the most valid point that I heard made was that Georgia's ability to keep other teams from scoring maybe covered up some of the holes in Stetson Bennett's game, maybe for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
If it comes down to we just have to outscore the other team, then – you know, do they bring JT Daniels in? Do they have a package for him? Do they have a plan for that? Or does he go – is he a senior? Does he go in a transfer portal after this year? What happens there?
Well, he's already transferred once.
Yeah.
You know, he was at USC.
That's true.
And so I don't know the rules around that. And I think – and I read something the other day on The Athletic. It made a pretty good point is it's going to be really hard to bench Bennett. But with Daniels, who hasn't played a lot, are you really losing a lot by putting him in over Bennett? And secondly, I think the ceiling's a lot higher with Daniels than it is Bennett. And I think that's kind of what the discussion is going to be. I would really be shocked if Kirby benched Bennett at the start of the game. But I think if that game against Michigan, is tight and Georgia's not effective moving the ball, I think you're going to see a pretty quick hook.
Well, yeah, I mean, if that's the thing. If you're in the game and you're behind and you're running out of time, you got to do something because what you've been doing up until now is not working. It really comes down again, though, to whether or not Georgia's defense can stop Michigan. You know, Ohio State was supposed to have had a great defense and number 2, number 3 against the run, and Michigan ran on them like they were West Junior High.
They did.
So I don't know. I don't know what happens there. I know
it's going to be Michigan is going to be Michigan looks a lot better than a statement I made a couple of weeks ago about them at Texas being 2 of the biggest underachievers in the history of the game.
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh's finally got it going down there. I think he probably shouldn't even lost the Michigan State game. He should be undefeated. But squirrel miss a limb every now and then.
Yeah, and I caught myself in that Michigan pulling for Michigan against Ohio State.
Oh, I definitely was. Just because even from the day they lost to Oregon, from the very minute the game was over, it wasn't how great a victory that was for Oregon. It was, okay, what does Ohio State need to do to get back in the playoff picture? And they've been worming them back up there all this time. And absolutely sure that it was going to be Ohio State.
Right.
And then Michigan comes in and beats them like that. And really their running game, I mean, they ran on them like I said, like they were West Junior High. I didn't think they'd be able to run like that on them.
Yeah, I didn't either. And I think, too, the one thing about Harbaugh that I do like, he didn't buckle. And he's been under a lot of pressure. And he stuck to his game plan. He stuck with his plan, his process. And he got rewarded probably a couple years later than people might ideally have liked it to get. But he's in the playoffs. That's all. That's the goal going in for a program like Michigan is win the Big Ten and get into the playoff. And I think they're sitting there in a good spot. Yeah. I really do. I haven't seen the point spread on the game. Who's favored?
I believe Ohio State's favored.
You mean Georgia?
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant, Georgia. I really don't know. I need to look at the. Let me get the bowl schedule up here.
Yeah, pull it up here. I'll look too. Well, but if you think about going into the playoff with nothing to lose, that's a pretty good place to be in.
Yeah, let's see. They'll play on New Year's Eve, correct?
Yes.
Well, this is not giving me a point spread here. ESPN's not giving me a point spread. It'll be a Cotton Bowl on New Year's Eve. I'll have to open up. Well, let's see what this tells me here. All right, yeah, 7.5 points.
Who's favored?
Georgia's going to be a 7.5 point favorite over Michigan.
I mean, don't you got to like that Michigan? Don't you got to like Michigan in that bet right there?
I think so. It should be a close game. I don't think it's going to be a runaway unless Michigan has a little Georgia-itis and, their first time in a playoff in a really long time. And Georgia's been playing in those big games for years, and they're going to have a chip on their shoulder, something to prove. It should be a good ball game. I think they'll both be. I think Cincinnati, Alabama's going to be a better ball game than people think. I think it's a double-digit, 13.5 point underdog for Cincinnati. And the one thing Cincinnati doesn't have going for them, with the exception of Notre Dame, they haven't really played anybody that plays the game as quickly as Alabama plays it. And so, you can talk about how good your guys are, but speed is always the determining factor as you move from league to league or team to team. And Alabama's got more team speed than, 3 teams combined in most cases. And if you've ever played a video game and you go from freshman to varsity or freshman to Heisman, how quickly the defenders get to you, how quickly the running backs get away from you, how open the receivers get, how much faster the game is. You hear the pros talk about it all the time. The game just speeds up when you get to the NFL. And then even when you get to the NFL and make it to the playoffs, it speeds up some more. And that's the one thing that I don't think Cincinnati's going to be able to assimilate in practice. Now, that doesn't mean they're not good enough to match up. But it does mean that they haven't faced anything like it yet. It's not to say you can't turn on the game, flip it to Heisman, and kick that team's tail. but it's tough.
No, I agree. And I think I agree with you that I think it's going to be a little bit closer than people think. Cincinnati's got 8 to 10 guys that are going to get drafted in the pros. Okay. And so you got 8 to 10. I think on Todd McShay's board, he put out this week or last week, he had 10 Cincinnati players predicted getting drafted. Now, most are going to be between the second and last round, of course. But when you got 10 NFL players on your roster, you're going to be you're going to have a pretty good squad.
Well, you got to say you got how many? They only draft 256 players to begin with. So,
and I think, Bama, what Bama, the advantage they have, they've got the experience going into this. They've got the depth. That, Cincinnati's not only playing the team, they're playing the mental aspect of the game, the depth, the experience. And to me, that's going to be the biggest challenge for them. Georgia, who's tighter than they are right now?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, they were invincible, going to win the national championship, number one, just coasting. Now you get blown out, for the lack of a better word, by Bama. Now you're limping into the playoff as the third seed and really not sure who your quarterback's going to be. Now you're playing a little bit tighter than you've been playing all year. And this is good. This Michigan-Georgia game is going to be really interesting. And if I was a betting man, I'd have to lean on Michigan a little bit on this, I think.
Don't you think that America would like to see somebody new win it? Would like to see Georgia maybe win it or see a Michigan come in and do it? I would like to see. My feelings wouldn't be hurt if Cincinnati won it. I think Cincinnati won. Nothing could be better for the college game than if Cincinnati wins it.
And I think America likes dynasties. Well, let's be honest. Sports are never more popular when there's a dynasty.
Yeah, they like brands.
Yeah. And, the Steelers of the 70s launched the NFL into the 80s. The San Francisco Niners launched the NFL, helped it grow from the 80s to the 90s. The Cowboys took it from there when their victories in the 90s. The Patriots from 2000 to now. And so the old days where you had the Miamis, the Notre Dames of the world, the Oklahomas, every year, sports are more popular when there's a dynasty. Tiger Woods, when Tiger's playing in a tournament, even though he's winning every week, the TV ratings are higher when he's playing and winning by even 5 strokes, 10 strokes. It really doesn't matter.
I don't disagree with that, but if the same 4 golfers were winning the tournament, winning the championship every year for 20 years, I think it gets old.
It does,
and it's no fun for the fans of the other teams. I can tell you for a fact. Now, but you're right. I watch golf when Tiger Woods is playing.
Yeah.
If he's doesn't make the cut, I don't watch it. If he doesn't play, if he's not in the hunt on Sunday, I don't watch it.
Nobody watches.
Yeah.
And if he's winning by 5 strokes, you watch it.
Absolutely, you do. And I get that, but I'm not a fan. But I think the difference right there in golf, as opposed to football, let's say, at least that's just what's rolling through my head right this second, is I don't follow anybody else in golf. I don't care who wins if Tiger Woods is. In other words, there's nobody out there where I'm going to be mad if he wins. Like if Alabama wins and I get upset about it, you don't have that in golf. I don't even have it in professional football. Really, I got tired of the Patriots winning it, but if the Titans are out, at least I have a team in pro football. NBA basketball, no interest. I mean, I really don't care who wins. Professional baseball, I usually pick a team, but I don't. But there's nobody in baseball, if they're great, I say, oh, I got to watch them. Football, I just think football there are too many other, and you've heard me say this before, the branded teams, the teams that win it all the time, the dynasty teams, need the fans of the other teams to make the whole thing work. And if you don't give those teams an opportunity to win it every now and then, those fans lose interest. I mean, if they hadn't put Cincinnati in there, what happens if Alabama loses to Georgia 25-24 in overtime? Is Cincinnati in the playoff? You ain't got to answer that. Okay, and Alabama's not?
No, Bama's not in. If they lose that championship game, I don't think they would have got in with 2 losses.
And I would like to believe that, but I don't. I don't think there's because Cincinnati's not a branded team. You just win against your argument right there. You know. I'm not arguing with you, but I'm just saying the philosophy you just gave me about everybody loving football when the dynasties are in there. You're going to pull a dynasty out for Cincinnati?
I think Notre Dame would have been in the playoffs.
Maybe.
But no, I see what you're saying.
I don't think Notre Dame jumps Cincinnati because Cincinnati beat Notre Dame. You can't put Notre Dame in there.
Well, who was going to be in after Bama if Bama got eliminated?
Nobody. That's what I mean. An undefeated Cincinnati team, in my opinion, doesn't get in if Bama lost a close game in overtime to Georgia. I think
who else would have been in?
They would have put Alabama and Georgia both in. It'd have been Georgia.
Well, they're both in.
I know it, but Cincinnati would not have been in because there would have been one more team in there.
Who?
I don't know. Maybe I've lost my mind. Now I got to go look at it.
Well, Cincinnati's in already.
Okay.
And Bama's in.
That's true.
If Bama losing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Maybe so. Maybe so.
Because I think if Bama would have lost, Notre Dame would have slipped up in there. Now, they may have been ranked fourth. You may have had Georgia 1, Notre Dame 4, Michigan 2, Cincinnati 3. Cincinnati may have moved up a spot if Bama would have lost. But I think Bama would have been eliminated. Cincinnati was in. But my point being is, with Bama good year in and year out, or there's some kind of dynasty, people just watch more. It's almost impossible.
I've heard people say the game is healthier, but I contend that the game is healthier this year, is more healthy this year than it's ever been. And I think it's probably the transfer portal has helped a lot. The COVID seniors. I heard an interesting theory. I want to see what you think about it, and then we'll get to a break. But what would be wrong with giving players a fifth year of eligibility, 6 years to play 5? And here, let me talk you all the way through it first. The guys that go to Alabama that play their 3 years and go to the pros, they do like they do. But the other schools, and I only know Arkansas's players, but say a kid like Brett Kern, a tight end, a walk-on tight end, got an extra year of eligibility because of COVID and played this year and contributed. There were 29 seniors on that team. I don't know how many of them were super seniors, but it was probably a little bit less than half. And that's what made Arkansas be able to go from a 3-7 team to 8-4 and got a pretty darn good chance to win the bowl game over Penn State. But the point is players that aren't going to the NFL but that could still contribute to their team another year in college will get that opportunity, and it would create a little bit more parity in the game.
I don't know if they would ever consider that, because at some point you got to draw the line. Do you give them 6 years to play, 7 years to play 6? I mean, where do you – and then – I mean, we'll all be honest. They're not student athletes anymore anyway.
No, no.
And do you just basically turn the NCAA into a minor league, which it is already anyway, but then now you're really turning it into a minor league because you're giving guys an extra year to play that want to play. I'm not saying I disagree with that philosophy. I'm trying to make sense of it in my head, is after because you are in school on the school team. And I'm trying to make sense in my head why that.
Well, I think what it would do, it would allow the players. It would allow the players that came to school to get their degree to continue playing because they're not looking to go to the NFL, and it allows the players that just go to college so they can up their NFL stock. They can do that. Everybody that wants to play the college game gets to play the college game, and everybody that's just looking to transition, just transition.
Or why not let the kid that goes to high school go to community college and play high school football game a year? I don't know. I don't know where you draw the line. I mean, it's an interesting. But I think the super seniors really for everybody. I mean, like I said, Cincinnati's got a lot of people got a bunch of seniors, and I think it's helped. It's kind of like basketball. Now, if you really think about it, you got the elite programs, the one and doneers, Kentucky, and all of that. But I mean, we're seeing an NCAA tournament now, senior laden basketball teams doing well in the tournament. They got experience. Yeah.
All right. Well, I hear the music. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back to talk about some of the coaching changes in the NCAA and a couple little parting gifts before we break for Christmas. Dave and B-Ray, speaking sports. Listen to this word from KRT, and we'll be right back. right, everyone from athletes to weekend warriors sometimes catch a cramp when they're competing or working out. When you need relief fast, you want to reach for KRT Relief Cream. Just rub a little where it hurts, and KRT's patented technology works quickly to calm the nerves that are causing the cramps. KRT comes in cream or gel and works great for everyone. So go to krtrelief.com and enter promo code SNS20. That's SNS20 to receive 20% off your first KRT order. That's www.krtrelief.com. All right, welcome back to Speaking Sports. Razorback Dave and B-Ray in the remote Avcare RNS studios. SNS20 is the code. KRT Relief is the website. Some of you have been ordering stuff. Thank you very much. We appreciate you listening. Appreciate you trying the product out. It works. It really does. Actually, B-Ray, when I break out right here, I'm going to be headed to Denver to the NCAA Athletic Directors Convention in Denver, Colorado that starts Sunday, but we get out there and set up on Saturday. So if you happen to be at that, come by the booth. I should know the booth number. It's in the 700. I think it's 748 or somewhere in the vicinity. It's the Avcare RNS booth, our KRT control at the conference. We'll be there all day Sunday, and then as long as it's open on Monday, I'm going to have the Speaking Sports studio set up. We're going to do a little walk-by interviews. We got some athletic directors already scheduled to come by, so it should be a fun time. I can't wait to get out there. But what about? I didn't see the Lincoln Riley move to USC coming.
No.
I mean, I really didn't. I don't know why you leave one branded program for another one, or I don't see what Brian Kelly did Notre Dame to LSU. I think there's way more pressure at LSU.
Oh, the 100% is, and maybe Brian Kelly's got all the money he needs right now. He signs one more big contract, and he can just go, look, you know what, I can give it a shot. I think I can win a championship. Maybe that's his goal. I don't know what his goal is. Maybe he thinks he has a better shot there. Lincoln Riley to USC, I think he said to hell with that, getting into that SEC West next year.
You know what? I talked to an Oklahoma booster yesterday, and he said the same thing, that the word on the street in Norman was that when the athletic director approached Lincoln Riley about his wanting to make the jump to the SEC, Riley was not for it. He said, I like winning my division every year and winning the Big 12 every year. He said, why would we want to do that? And the athletic director said, well, you might as well strap your big boy pants on because that's what we're doing. And I think he just ran away from it.
Yeah, and I think I do too. And I think that it's going to be work. And I think he saw this year that
if it was easy, everybody would do it.
That's right. And also, I'm sure the athletic director said, I'll give you about $20 million plus extra reasons a year why we're going to do it.
Maybe so. But even then, you go out, it's an easier path to get there. But you have seen what happens to a majority of the schools that don't play the week-in, week-out schedule like they do in the SEC.
Oh, that's right.
That they can't they can't compete.
There's 2 teams in it.
That's right.
There's 2 teams in the playoff.
That's right. You can't, and that's typically not the case if you're at USC and playing everybody in the Pac-12, or even at Oklahoma for that matter. Texas has been nothing to write home about for quite a while since they got their Longhorn Network, which I believe I called that shot 25 years ago.
I don't think anybody in the Pac-12 has been in the playoff in a couple years.
Not even in the discussion.
Yeah.
Not even since Oregon. I guess Oregon with Mariota was the last time they were in it, wasn't it? That was the last time they were in it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
The Lincoln Riley, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not really crazy about the Oklahoma hire of Brett Venable either.
I asked Gary about that yesterday, and he said they feel like they really got a good deal. They feel like they got an upgrade. People have been trying to get Venables out of Clemson for years. I mean, he was always the first, especially when they were winning national championships. This was the first name that came up every year for a job opening, and he never would leave. Do you think maybe he jumped ship because the ship's sinking a little bit at Clemson now? They got some chinks in their armor for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson's come back to the pack a little bit, and I think that now that Lawrence is gone, and I think a lot of it is Oklahoma probably said we needed more of a defensive-minded guy going into the SEC, and I think they got one. There's offensive coaches are a dime a dozen these days. defensive-minded coaches you don't see a lot of. And I think if you kind of think about it that way, it probably makes sense. But it just wasn't – I don't know. As an Oklahoma top, branded program, you would think that they would attract a little bit more interest in that. And Brett may go there and win 5 national championships.
Well,
I don't know. But
there may not be anybody out there all that hopped up about joining the SEC. But it is essentially an SEC job now.
So, it is, 100% is.
So, and maybe that's what he wanted. But there were SEC jobs open that he did not take.
Well, this is a Cadillac job. I mean, this is a. Yeah, but let's rephrase that. It was. Yeah. Is it now going forward? Is it a? You're getting the keys to a race car, but now everybody else has got a race car.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and then when the coaching moves start happening, then transfer portal moves start happening. The ones that you weren't expecting. Case in point, Jalen, I think it's Jalen Hazelwood out of Oklahoma, 5-star recruit in 2019, number 1 wide receiver in the country coming out of high school, number 4 player in the nation coming out of high school, entered the transfer portal, transferring to Arkansas. Last year, Arkansas sent their second best receiver to Oklahoma. He transferred to Oklahoma. So they've just kind of switched. But now you're starting to hear that some people are transferring out of Texas, some people are transferring out of Notre Dame, LSU. LSU is, I don't know what that's going to be like. That's a different culture down in Baton Rouge. I don't know if Brian Kelly can go in there and get them to buy into what he's selling, because he doesn't bring the success that Nick Saban did.
Right.
Nick Saban could do it, but he didn't stay there long. He was
there and took the Dolphins job.
Yeah, he took the Dolphins job from there and then went to Alabama from there. And Dabo Swinney, I guess he's sitting up at Clemson thinking surely to God Nick Saban will retire sooner or later. But until his hair starts getting gray, I don't think he's going to.
No.
But I think it's interesting that he's older than us and his hair is not the least bit gray.
We colored it.
I know what color.
He's like, that and that Les Miles had gray hair 10 years ago. Now he's got black hair. Whatever his deal.
Yeah. Well, okay. Just word to the wise. If you've got lots of gray hair and you dye it all black, not fooling anybody. And you don't look younger. I've not seen anybody look younger. Tom Brady colors his hair. Last year you could tell it a lot better than you can this year. He's wearing it a lot shorter this year. So it's not that big a deal, but last year he was definitely because nobody's hair is the same color end to end, head to neck.
I think Tom Brady does it not for vanity. I think he does it more so that the guys on the team won't think he's an old man.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah. So before we get out of here, and I'm not going to show the clip because I don't have the rights to it, but there are other people out there that are willing to pirate the rights. So if you go to Google or YouTube and Google Kenny Pickett's fake slide, you'll get to see it was a really smart play. And I just read an interview with him where he said, yeah, it wasn't planned. It was intentional, but it wasn't planned. He said, I was running up and I was kind of reversing my hips like I was getting ready to slide, and I saw the defensive player let up and I just jetted. Well, now this week it's against the rules. The NCAA coming out with a memo outlining that, calling it any move to slide, even if you don't slide, is considered a slide, and and the ball's dead where the slide starts.
Is it reviewable?
Not reviewable.
I think it's a great idea to put more decision-making ability in inept refereeing crews.
Oh, I think they did the right thing here. My question is, why do they keep fumbling targeting? Why do they keep fumbling targeting?
I don't understand the whole targeting thing, kicking somebody out of the game for 2. I don't get it. I think the targeting needs to go to a first you get a 15-yard penalty and a warning. You do it again in the same game, you're out the rest of the game. Well, you do it a third time over 2 or 3 games, you're out for a full game. Something like that. Just kicking somebody out. A lot of times a targeting, I don't like the rule. I like the intent of the rule. I don't like the rule as it sits now. The slide, I think it's a good idea because players will let up when they see the player going down, and so you can't allow people to start faking that because then I don't know. I agree with the rule. I was just joking about.
Oh, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with the rule. I think it defeats the purpose if you allow somebody to fake the slide. You're allowing the slide to protect the quarterback. If you allow him to fake it, then you take the game out of the defensive player's hands because he's going to be wrong no matter what he does. If he dives in anticipating that you're faking, he's going to take you out and get a penalty. If he dives in and you're not, then, he can't win there. But the targeting rule is becoming more and more like a holding penalty in that. There's a couple of factors about the targeting rule that kind of bug me. One of them is if the ball carrier lowers his head as the defender's coming in, when the defender leaves his feet, let's say this is my head, my fist is the helmet, and this is me. I'm gonna leave my feet and come in. And then the player lowers his head, and I hit you head on. That's targeting on the defensive player.
Correct.
But he didn't have the intent to hit in the head because when he left his feet, he wasn't aimed at the head. The head was moved into his way, and I see that happen probably 30% of the time.
It happens more. It happens a lot.
And now I have seen it when it wasn't called. There were 2 targeting penalties in the Alabama-Arkansas game that didn't get called. One of them almost concussed our best receiver on an onside kick, and it was out of bounds, and they didn't call it. So
that's a whole other show. Talking about the cheat.
I'm not going to go there, but and that's the one thing I do like about the playoffs is when you get to the playoffs, they have to do it on their own. They didn't get the calls in the SEC championship game either.
No,
they had to win that one on their own. And give them credit for that, but it's not going to get any easier.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, talking about the playoffs as we kind of head out, dude. They have to vote this year whether to expand or not, and that vote's coming up because if they don't vote on it this year, they have to table it for 2 or 3 years, whatever the agreement says. So what's your thoughts on are they going to expand or not, and to how many?
I've never thought they should expand to 12, and the only reason they picked 12 is so they could give the top 4 teams a bye. That's why they picked 12. I think it should be 8, and everybody should have to play. Now, if Alabama's the 1 seed and they end up playing, who would it be this year? Us just let me look. Get the
Ole Miss again or something? Or?
Well, it's 1 and 8, so yeah, it'd be Alabama. Alabama would play Ole Miss, Michigan would play Baylor, Georgia would play Ohio State, and Cincinnati would play Notre Dame again. I think those would be great games.
Yep.
And everybody plays.
And here's the thing about that. And everybody says when you read off those matchups, I think really that any one of those teams could win it all.
Oh, yeah. I think when you look at it from that context, it's absolutely possible. But that's just 8 teams. Now, if you expanded it to 12, you're adding Michigan State, Utah, Pittsburgh, and BYU. And all you're really doing is you're not wanting those last 4 teams in. You're wanting the top 4 teams to get a bye. That's it. So they have the advantage over everybody else. So you can still protect your branded teams a little bit. And I just don't think that's I think 8's the max. And nobody's going to come in and make an argument for – you might make an argument between Oklahoma State and Ole Miss. You have that argument. It'd be one of the 2 of them. I think probably Ole Miss plays a tougher schedule. You nod to Ole Miss. I don't know, but I don't think you're if Oklahoma State's not in and Ole Miss is, I don't think you're leaving anybody out. You're not leaving anybody out.
I don't either. That's right.
I just think 12 is too much. I think they should go to 8. I just don't think they will. I think they will say 12 is too many and not do it. They won't even explore the possibility of 8 because that's what's reasonable, and then delay it another 3 or 4 years. That's what I think they'll do. Yeah. They're not known for doing what's right at first, right? Because remember the BCS, when they instilled the BCS, only 2 teams got in.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They picked 2 teams to play the BCS national team, and that was it. And it was like that for however long it was. And then it went to, the Bowl Championship Series where they used the BCS. Yeah, so then and then now you got a 14 playoff. You need an 18 playoff. They threw 12 out. Maybe they threw 12 out there. So when they come back with 8, the people that squalled that 12 was too many won't have anything to say. And the people that thought 4 was enough, they're not having to go as far as they did. That would be the political. If I was in the communication department at the NCAA, I would have said that. Yeah, float 12, settle on 8, and this is what we're doing. And at the end of the day, here's the thing about the NBA and NCAA, and I'm going to let you go. It doesn't matter what they do. People are going to watch. They can't screw it up. You can't screw it up.
Right.
You just can't screw it up. Now, you might screw up having Alabama win it every year or Ohio State. You might screw that up, but you're not going to screw up the game. What's going to screw up the game is if you don't get some parity in there, because even in the NFL, that's one of the beauties of the NFL is there at least is parity. Yes, there are dynasties, but everybody that kicks off on day one has a chance to win the Super Bowl.
100%.
Everybody. There is nobody in that league that does not have a legitimate shot at winning the Super Bowl. And you can't say that about college football. Not even in the top 32 teams, you can't say it.
No, and I think, too, if you do expand to 8, do all the conference champions get in? Well, if you do that, think about what – yeah,
I think you do.
So then that probably,
and then you have the added attraction of the conference champions get in, and then you're going to have at-larges because you're going to let the Power 5 conference champions in 3 at-large at 8. That's where you're going to be.
Maybe the whole thing with 12 is
or maybe you do the top Power 5 champions, and then the highest ranked team out of the group of 5, and then 2 at-large.
Yeah.
I mean, because it doesn't bother me if the SEC only gets one team in. I don't care. SEC's been running roughshod over this whole thing for years, and I'm no SEC apologist. They've never done us any favors. I don't care if they get 2 teams in or not. We make our money at Arkansas and all the other teams. Vanderbilt would be the only one that would squall if we didn't get 2 teams in because they get more money.
13 SEC teams made the bowl.
Yeah, I don't even want to diss them. Have you seen the SEC short? Where they're at the prom and they're matching up the teams with their bowl dates, and everybody's there, but Vanderbilt's over there talking about, well, baseball season's just around the corner, and they're the only team that's not invited to the bowl dance.
That's good.
Oh my gosh, it's good. All right, man. Well, it was great getting to be with you. We're going to table this show until after the first round of the playoff. We'll be back the week after the playoff and see where it's taken us and see what else has ripped or torn since then. For B-Ray, this is Razorback Dave. We will see you next time. Have a great holiday and be safe.